Hello everyone. Just doing final touches and would be available in a second. Okay, just having the chat ready, things ready. I think let's double check. Just to check if yes, the stream is live. Looks like that's good. Let me find some music. Okay. Where did I put it? Oops, not that one. Lost it. Right here and right here. Okay, so this is okay. Now link accounts. This is linked. So if I go to YouTube now, trying to add some background music. Okay, so this is in here. This is in here, and how do I oh, I cannot hear anything. Just a second. Let's try to. Okay, this one is working. Okay, never mind. I think we good as we are. Everyone can listen to the music until I figure out a way to deal with the music. One more thing. Just connecting, finding music. Okay, we'll go here. So go. So I'm just going over to trying to figure out. Yeah, it's just taking too long. I'm trying to. Yeah, screw it. Fine. Sorry about that. Okay, let's share the stream. If I would want to join. Right over here. Chat is here. And then also right here as well. Should we also put one to the LinkedIn? I think we should, because why not? And I want to go with this question. One second, I'll get back in a moment. Okay, post that. Done. Okay, so sorry about this. Kind of like done, and done. Sound is good, I hope. Sorry about the background noise if you hear any. My family is preparing to go to bed, so it's usually very hectic at this time. Anyways, a little bit some nice tea to get me warm. So, hi everyone. Welcome to yet another stream. Sorry for all of these technical unpreparation, but as you all know, I'm not professional streamer, so these things are expected, right? So what we're gonna be doing today, and what is this project for? If you haven't followed a couple previous ones, let me just sorry again, more distractions. Perfect. So yeah, so if you didn't follow in the past, I wanted to do something where I could actually run, like would generate the e-commerce data, so I could then run some analytics on top of that. I actually initially wanted to do some analytics, and then I realized that I don't really have any data to do the analytics. So I decided, okay, maybe I should search for the data. I tried to search, all the data sets wasn't interesting, and I decided, well, I think the best what I want to do is just, like create that myself. So this is what we have. So I'm just will start compose -f MySQL docker compose up. So we're starting our database. Before starting our database, we need to start our Docker. So let's just give it a minute. So the Docker is launching. Okay, Docker is up and running. Okay, MySQL is created. Now let's go into our DB visualizer. Let me a little bit scale down the sound. I hope it's better. Right. Now for the MySQL, we can connect. Password is root. You're free to join as well if you want. The local host is host. And right. So first of all, we don't see any tables in here. The reason for that is that we actually don't have a persistent storage installed. So while you are still coming into, actually could look into introducing the local storage. So let's stop our MySQL. And what I can do, I can say like, look, my MySQL data is the directory where I want you to store all the data, right? So let's start to initializing it again. Let's hope it will. Nope, not what I wanted to do. Okay, so it should be just data, right? So this is from the directory where this host file is. So let's pause that. Let's delete all the files and let's start again. Let's start again. And now this will start filling up with the information. Oh, yes, it does. That's great. And we have things running. That's good. Let's try to disconnect and reconnect back. Okay. So we do have data available for us. Let's create a new schema. And now what schema do I need to have for this one? Let's go into our project. It's called e-commerce. Okay, so let's create schema e-commerce. Oh, actually it's not schema, it's actually database, right? So, oh, sorry. Database, e-commerce. What I'm doing wrong? Create database. What's wrong with me? I don't know how to create database in MySQL. That's sad. fine. Now, create database e-commerce. This should be it. Oh my god. MySQL, create database statement. What's wrong with me? Just that is. Yeah, this is crazy. Like, come on, like, anyone know what I'm doing wrong? Like, why cannot create a database? So databases, create database, this one. Is it if not exists? But that's is not necessary. Like, this is just what you do. There's DB. Line free. What line free? What? Okay. Is it because the way how I started? Okay, let's try that, right? So let's stop this one. Let's remove these two lines. Let's start again. It should create a new database for me. So if I go here, I disconnect and I would connect again, right? And now if I go and say create database, no. What? Okay. Can I go, do I have my SQL client? Nope. Let's get to the bottom of this one. Again, like, this wasn't expected. MySQL client Mac. I think that will be okay. This one. Okay, do I have like the home brew MySQL client? Is there anything like that? Yes, there should be. And yes, indeed it is. That's great. Okay, so okay, I'm confused. I don't know what the hell is happening in here. And of course I cannot. Ugh. Rough start. Because look, so I think I'm missing something with the configuration. So if I would enable this once in here, right? I will stop that. Let's reconnect because okay, so in my code, the data is there, everything is fine. So in my code, I do have a scenario. And what the scenario does, it actually has in it DB, right? And right in here, last time what I did, so local show history is nope. Right here. I had this line. And this line was fine. It was like create e-commerce stat, and then this was the, just call it e-commerce. E-commerce, good. So now if I run my Python code, so Python -m manage without py, it's what's happening today? What do you mean doesn't have an execute? So this one should fail, telling that there is no database. And I agree with that, there is no database. Okay, so reconnect and execute? No. Okay, so what's happening is that, Okay, is it possible that I have some close all? So is it possible that I create I guess yeah. Anyways, I'm happy it worked. Like, it's just, I don't get it. Like, I guess magic of technology, right? So now, if I go to my, so yeah, so as you can see, now we do have a database, e-commerce, which is completely empty. So now if I go into my static visits, minimum visits is 5 visits per day. And now we run this, it should connect to the database, it's generating the visits. Not only that, it's also generated a table. So I do have a visit table, I do have a search table, I do have the orders table, and also even have a data in all of that. So that is great. So now the next step, when we have all of this information available for us, we want to, yes, and it is done running, less stuff. So now if I, for example, want to do something, what I did last time, for example, select star from, visits, and we would run, I need to select e-commerce database. Visits, we do have like generated visits for us. That's great. And, like we could, for example, could do some analysis on top of that. But before we go into that, I wanted to look into something. So one of the things which is important when you doing the analytics, right? And for example, for the e-commerce, is you might know everything what's happening in your website, but all the things which basically starts from your incoming traffic. So one of the things which you need to make sure is that incoming traffic is also somehow tracked. What do I mean by that? So let's go to list charts, and I'll try to explain for whatever is watching it now or in future or something. So, and I'm talking here about acquisition channels. So if you know about acquisition channels, you can skip to the next stage. But if you're joining me real time, then just stick with me for a little bit, right? So we do have our e-commerce page, right? So the users are going in there, and let's put it, like doing some sort of, like make search, right? And then if the make search, right? It's search. It looks bad, but I think it's right. Yeah, so the user made search, right? And then if they made search, they maybe made order, right? And then sort of like we kind of like want to, and then if they didn't made search, then like did they do something else? Like we can track all of these things internally, and we can look into all of these things, but the things which we don't know is sort of like eventually you start getting into these things like, oh, like we should buy traffic. I mean, okay, that's a good idea. You could buy a traffic, but then you go into sort of like interesting things like, if we buy traffic, how do we know is this traffic is converting correctly, right? Like you bought the traffic for like $1 from Google, and then how do you know if you actually made a plus or you spend all of this money and you didn't get the traffic? So one of the things what you need to do, you need to know what is your incoming source. I will use some different, like, so here, let's say we have Google, right? Now, additionally, what you have is someone just knows the address. So basically they just enter it address in address bar, right? And they end up at your web page. Someone maybe got an email, and let's not go that far. Someone maybe, found you at Bing, if you know what the Bing is. Someone might find you at Reddit, right? Or someone might find, someone shared this in Discord. So all of these sources can lead into your e-commerce page. and you want to sort of like give the analysis for all of them and sort of like kind of like figure out where the traffic is coming from. So how do you do that? So in the web pages, wherever I open the page, so for example, if I open any page, let's say the same Google, right? And I would go into the inspect elements, and I would go into the network. Let's refresh it again, and I would select all, actually docs right here. So this is not hacking. This is just like a standard HTTP protocol, right? So this has this information about who I am, and also like what what was my request. It is request header or request object, right? And this request object has a bunch of information, and like the cookies stuff and things like that, and nothing more in here, right? And this is sort of like this. However, if I go into the page, let's say we go to the page, not Google, but we go to bing.com, right? And now let's say we have this image. Let's change this image. So inspect, and now instead of the image, I want this to actually, let's edit HTML. I want this to go to google.com, HTTPS, www.google.com, right? So I want it to go through here. Now the only thing which I need to do, I want to enable the network. So now when I press, I land up on the Google. And now if I'm not mistaken, and I hope I'm not, we should see additional object in here, right here, referral. So this represents the source from where we come. So every time when you're coming to web page, every time when you're coming to a web page, your request has referrer. And in this case, that would be google.com, right? In this case, this could be, just like this would be refer would be nothing. It would be empty, right? None. Now the Bing would have refer, would have bing.com. Reddit, of course, would have the Reddit, and so on and so forth. So you need to have some sort of logic in your website which would get this request. It would analyze what the request is, what the request headers, and one of these request headers would be the referral. And from this, you could actually sort of figure out if the traffic coming from Google, then we adding that the source is Google. If the traffic is Bing, we adding the source is Bing, and so on and so forth. And of course, there is like a bunch of other things. So I think what we want to do, we just go with the simple example, right? So we go into our web page, into our scenario implementation. So first thing which we're gonna do, we want to see right here where we create a trans scenario, and then for each J we're generating the generating the visit, and we're saying generate the visit with the DT, right? When we go to generate the visit, it takes the user type and it creates the visit. So what we need to do add here, we need to add source. And now what we want to do is np random choice, and we just want to generate a choice from the list of possible sources. And we can say, actually it gives us like organic, referral, direct, so social. Let's go this with the source. I like that more because it's kind of like a little bit better. So let's go with what I was saying. So you would go with Google, right? Sorry. So let's comment this line, and let's go with the sources where we go Google. Then we have Facebook, LinkedIn. We want to add Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuck, Yandex, right? So this is sort of like a different set of the sources where it can go. And also the source can be direct, right? And stuff like that. But as you see here, it doesn't like really make sense, because like, for example, Google can traffic can be bought where you're buying traffic on Google, or it can be organic, which is basically SEO, when the people find your website on Google and they just come. The same is with Facebook. They just come from the Facebook where someone shared the link in their blog post, or they can come from Facebook whenever whenever you bought an ad on Facebook. And the same comes with other ones. So very often we use this, but not as a source, but maybe like a Medium or something else, but it's a different story. But for the source, what we do is something following. So we say like, okay, organic. So if the traffic coming from Google, from Bing, from DuckDuckGo, and it's organic source, we call it organic. If it's not organic, we call it paid. Right, so paid would include everything, so Twitter, Facebook, Google, whatever you want. Then we have a referral. Referral is when the traffic coming from the link, but it's not like it's not like coming from Bing, or it's coming from like Reddit, right? So this is like referral, or it's coming from somewhere else, like maybe like someone pressed in the Gmail on the link, and that has the referral of being Gmail, which is not really Google, so it's not really organic. It's more like like referral, or someone shared that on the forum. Then the direct is the one where there is no like refer added, and then eventually social is sort of similar to organic, but it sort of like just shows data coming from the social. Right now we do have the source, so we just need to add source here, and we just say it's source. And of course, before we going, we need to introduce source into our data. So we say, look, our source is a field, right? Source, and it's this type, and eventually we also say that the source is source, what was provided in here, and we also provide here source as a field. So we do have a source, and let's create now. If I would run this again, it will fail, telling that the source is not available in the database, right? So we need to migrate, we need to update the database. So there is a fancy way of doing that. I have non-fancy way of doing that. It's this one, right? So we just dropping the database and we creating database, and it should be fine. What's now? Create database. All right, it doesn't able to find this one, so create database in commerce. Perfect. Now it's good. And now actually for the future we go e-commerce here. So now if I would refresh this, it has 0 tables, right? It doesn't have any tables. However, if now I would start my code, and finger crossed everything works. And now if I go into my query and say, hey, select, like start from visits, now I do have a source. So that's already fun. So now we're able to generate, like visits by the source. And now what we can do is run analysis, something like, like select, what do I want to do? I want to say select created at, which is the date when the visit happened. And I want to have a source, right? And I want just to have count of rows from e-commerce visits, group by created at and source. So if I would run this, we're now able to see, like on every day. So this is the day. And actually, if I take all of this data with myself and I go to, and if I go to the Google Docs in this example, and I would say, okay, just put the data in here. We can just call it count. And let's say I want to insert chart. And now for the chart, I actually would want to have something like this. And I want to use first row as the header. Nope, that's the labels. No, show switch row and counts. Nope, not that one. Okay, so right, I made a mistake. Yes, so what I need to do first, I need to first pivot the table where each row is created at and each column is the source, and then I just want to have values for the counts. And now if I take this data right here, now I can actually create a chart which looks like that, but let's change that into this. Actually, let's change that into this. And now we have a little bit more analysis, right? So now if we're looking at our data, we can see that, you know, like for example, on the 1st of January, we only have, by the way, 10 days. This is my limitation of the data. We can see that all the channels kind of like distributed around, right? And then in here, we sort of see that that's sort of like a smaller, or it goes. And for example, we can say that on the 5th, the organic has the most data, right? And you could actually figure out. So now if you join this data together with your orders or searches, you actually can figure out the way of how your, you know, like e-commerce website is performing. And that's sort of like one of the, you know, like easiest and the first things to do the analytics. Any questions? Hey, just some guy. I'm good, drinking tea, talking analytics. How yourself? Thank you for joining, by the way. Yeah, so this is kind of like, you know, like the analytics 101. So as I said, like we trying to increase our raw data so it would look good. So one of the things which, yeah, so we do have source, right? So additional to the source, it might be interesting to, I mean, what else can be there which would be interesting, right? So when it's coming through the source, you kind of like wanted to know which channel still was interesting, right? Do I like to do better for streaming? I don't know yet. I'm trying to figure out. I kind of feel that the Twitch not really great for what I'm doing, because I feel that there is a bunch of Twitch people who just, you know, like write JavaScript or like code something, and my content is actually only gives value if someone asks something about the data engineering. At least I haven't found an activity in the background which would be interesting to watch in Twitch. I feel like the people coming to Twitch to relax and enjoy and to entertain, and I don't think that my content is really entertaining, if that makes sense. Most likely it doesn't, unless you need to be like as crazy as me about the data to find it entertaining. So it's more like, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I'm just trying YouTube. I like the Twitch infrastructure better, of how it's built, of how to build the community, of how sort of like talk with people, of the feedback the community can give by, you know, like, or you can give that to the community by using, you know, like different tools, or like everything is built about the Twitch, and that's really great about it. And for YouTube is nothing out here. So when I said that I'm moving from the, but whenever I make a video and I cut a small piece out of that video and I upload it into YouTube, it's actually sort of feels that it gets more value through the time, where the Twitch is the videos. I don't know. So do I like YouTube better for, okay, to answer your question, as always, do I like YouTube better for streaming? No. But I kind of feel that's the more accurate platform, because I don't feel that my content is entertaining enough to be suitable for Twitch. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? Or doesn't matter? I mean, I don't know. So just getting back, right? So we just introduced a new metric, which is source, which is basically represents like a different source traffic. Now, what I want to do, I also kind of want to add these pages, sort of like these things as well, right? So I want to do something like that. I want to actually go, let's say like, okay, so I want to change source into what can be, yeah, source is fine. And then medium, is that a good name? NP random choice. This is not this one, and it should be, you know, like Google, Bing, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. That's good. Yeah, let's keep it those. So we do have a medium and we do have a source. Now the thing which I want to do is additionally, if source, actually we should do, yeah, we should little bit do, yeah, maybe that's also an option to stream on Twitch and upload to YouTube. Oh, is it laggy? Because of how much of the resources it's all pulls, right? Is Twitch less laggy than the YouTube? So what I'm doing is like, if source is, I need to think about that. Like, okay, so first for the initial version, I don't care about that, right? So we just go medium equal medium. So we do have a bunch of medium things. We do have a bunch of source. Let's get back again to the visits. Let's introduce medium equal column. Let's introduce medium is equal. Actually, I could use this one as well. Random elements here, and I could use this faker random elements, and elements is here. So I do have, okay, let's switch the stuff from here, because then I don't need to add these things in here anymore. This will makes my life a little bit easier. So let's just move things into here. So what we do have is following. So for medium, this is our list of medium. And random element requires to have a collection of strings, so something like that, which is good. And then for the source, we actually want to use these. Let's use these for the source, and now we can get rid of these two lines. We don't need them anymore. And why are you angry now? Should be fine. Source medium visits. Yeah, something. Oh, I know why. Because I'm stupid. So it's because I need to have this one. And I just want to have. I remember just before I started writing code in Python, I found this. So early in the days, oh my God. So like 20 years ago, I started writing code using PHP. So if you don't know, there is this programming language where you could create the web pages, right? So I started writing code in PHP. And when I heard about the Python, and they said like, oh, Python, the ident is important. You need to sort of like, like push the code, certain, variables. I was like, WTF is that? Like, why would someone came up with that? And now I kind of like don't really care about that. It's just like, it's there, it's fine. But like I remember of like thinking of myself like, this is stupid. Like why would someone create something like that? Okay, so let's drop database, let's create database, and let's generate our data. And the data is failed because we just removed the source from here, which we don't need anymore because the source or medium is built up in here automatically. The data is being generated. Let's run our visits. So now we do have both the direct. So we do have the direct. This does, like, that's the problem with the generator. Like the direct would never be considered coming from LinkedIn. It's a direct traffic. So yeah. Anyways. Yeah, I don't like that. I mean, I'm fine generating fake data, but the fake data needs to be somewhat realistic, at least a little bit. So I'm sorry, no, I cannot leave this way. This is bad. So let's get back things to what we had. So all right, so let's get back into having source and then adding medium, and then we just say like, okay, we also have a medium as a parameter which we pass in. Now in the scenario, what we do, like, okay, so in the scenario we return back source and medium. Now what I think I want to do, I want to do something like that. So this is cool, but what I want to do something else. I want to introduce an object of you know, like map of source and medium, right? So for every source, so for Google, we should have a list of possible, for each source, so organic, we should have a list of, or reverse, yeah, of this one, of the list of who can provide it. So we can have Google, right? And we need to get actually here an array. So we can have Google, Bing, Yahoo. Then we have, come on, paid. Google, Bing, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Perfect. Then we have referral. Now with the referral, I think this doesn't really matter to me, because like, well, we could say like, okay, so yeah, I think we just say like, okay, we don't know where the referral traffic comes in, right? So unknown, and we are fine with that. We also have the direct, and the direct will always be unknown. In other words, like the direct will never be set, so we are fine with that. So we have organic, paid, referral. Okay, and did we cover all of the page types? It's organic, paid, referral, direct, social. So we just need to add social in here. Sorry about that. I should have muted my microphone again. Amateur streamer doesn't know what he's doing. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So the difference between their social and the paid is that here is the traffic which came from paid traffic from these sources, and this is sort of like, so in Facebook you can buy ad, or people organically can pay. So that's the main difference between. So the traffic still comes from Facebook, but they are different. Okay. So now what we do is following. We say, okay, so now medium, we need to choose, source, we need to choose between those. And the way how we do that is we use Python magic. We say self source, scenario params, map of medium, and then keys. I mean, I wanted to write that, and now the Copilot write it for me. I mean, it takes the fun stuff of the coding. Anyway, so what will happen now, this function will take all of these keys, and then it would, so this keys would take, and then it would return into as array, and then this random choice will select one of those keys as a source. And now the source will be, you know, like one of, oops, that's not where I want to go. So the source will be one of these. So when we have the source, now what we can do here, we can do something like, okay, so self scenario medium source, and we actually can go values, right? Just to be very, very accurate, but actually we can go values because this is array and not, actually this is a list, what we have here, and not the object. So we're just putting this values in here. And this is how we get building a medium. And now what we just need to do, we just need to insert source is equal our source, and then medium is equal our medium. Perfect. Okay, so this is done. Again, let's reinitiate our database, drop database, create database, and let's run our generator. And of course this failed. Why did you fail? Because must be a dimensional or okay, so in the choice, what was your problem? Let's see. Why did it fail? So if I go print source, and if I go, oh, this is unexpected, because the keys should return all of these as array. So what's wrong with you? Okay, so if I go into, let's print the keys, let's see what's happening in there, and let's see if it's always failing or just failing for this one. Yes, it's always failing. So you're failing. Yeah, that's one of the things. So just need to convert that to list, and that should be it. So it's expecting to have a list, but it got ticked keys, which is a type of list. And now it runs. Magic of computer science. Yeah. Anyway, so let's get back into our data. Let's now select that and let's analyze the data, right? So let's say, hey, give me a list. Actually, give me a distinct list of source and medium. I just want to see what did you build, right? So let's sort by this. So direct is only unknown. All right, so this is what we, where's my rectangle? Okay, so let's get back into our, not here, let's get back into our source. So this is what we have, right? So now if we go here, direct can only be unknown. That's true. Organic, we have 3 possible values, Google, Yahoo, and Bing. So organic, Google, Yahoo, and Bing, perfect. Paid, we have a bunch of those. So we have Google, Bing, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of them. Referral unknown 1, yes. And then social 3, great success. So now we're able to have all of those available to us. So now it's good. Now let's imagine, okay, so first, while I describe my scenario, let me change the dates a little bit further. Let's, where is the, so the scenario trigger here. So what we want to do wants to say that we actually want to generate for all 2003, we want to generate the data. So let it run in the background. Let's get some tea for my throat. Okay, so you joined a startup and let's say they just got their first round. They need to increase the visits. They say like, well, we have some Google, we have some, things, we get some traffic getting in. We bang some ads and we sort of don't really know what we're doing, right? And the question is then okay, can you help us to answer the question, which traffic generates us the most value, right? And you say okay, so what do you guys have? And they're like, well, we have database. And you're like, okay, let's start looking. And so look, this is where the database, this is where all the things comes into, and kind of here's our orders, here's our searches, here's our visits. And you're like, okay, so I see. So, okay, so you have a visit, then you have the searches, the search has a visit ID, and okay, you have an order. So, and this is the total value. And the good point here is that the most important thing is in business, the most important KPI is the revenue. Nothing else matters. So if someone says oh, the user experience is very important, no, the user experience doesn't pay you salary, the revenue does. So make sure that you're tracking the revenue before you track user experience. That's my 2 cents. This is how I think. Okay, so let's try to build a simple report, one-off report to the company's, CEO, to show that we know what we're doing. And they ask us to build, they said okay, we need to understand what channel is the most important, where we should spend more money. So let's do that. So let's select star. That's usually how I start things, but you can start the way you want. Visits as V, right? And let's go limit 10. So I already had that, and I want to select a database, so my queries would be a little bit more simpler. We have the data, that's great. Now, additional to this data, we want to left join our searches, which is s on the dot id equal s dot visit id, because I know visits do have, I know the searches has a visit id, right? So if I run this one, okay, now I have a, I have the visit table and I have the search table available. That's good. Let's move on. So now we also can do left join orders on O, where, like in this case would be S, or actually O ID, order ID would be equal, no. So it would be S ID. So search ID would be equal in the orders. What we do have? We do have the search ID. Perfect. Yeah. We do have O dot search ID, right? And now let's run the query again. And we do having visits, we do have searches, and then we do have orders. This is interesting. So far, absolutely all searches ended up in orders. Is that really the case? This is very, very strange. This shouldn't be the case. Okay, we can look into that later in the future. Okay, let's not okay. Anyway, we need to, the data quality is always issue in the business. Let's say we're not solving the data quality problem. Yes, so let's move on. So now what I want to do, I want to know my source, right? I want to know my medium, and I want now to get the metric. So the metric which I care about is order total. So sum order total, and let's be, practical. Let's put order dot, let's put visits dot medium and visit dot search, right? And we get the order total. Now, if I would run this query, well, I also need to do group by with dot source, v dot medium, and we can run this query. This query returns the result. So for the amount of data, what I have, I see that the paid Facebook is actually generating way lower. I hate these numbers, I don't see them. Let's go to our reporting tool. Let's actually copy with the column names. It will be easier to deal with. So we do have, come on. Okay. And now let's put it in here. Right, so we do have total in here, and then we do have, source and medium, right? Now we can go here and convert that to dollars, so it would be easier to see. Perfect. And additionally, what we can do is percentage from total, right? And the way how we do that, we said okay, let's get total here, which will be just a sum, right? So this is our sum. And now let's divide this one from the total, but we want to freeze total, and then let's apply, and let's convert everything into percentage value. So what we see here is this direct and also referral with a known basically has the most value for us. So the users which comes directly to our page, or the users which comes through the link, which we know nothing about, is actually responsible for 40% of income, right? So for 40% of the revenue. That's even better, because it means that the money we spend for, the paid ad basically doesn't pay at all. So it's like wasting the money, right? And you can go to, to your CEO and say okay, so how much did we spend for, and ads last year? And he's like, well, not really that much. Like for Google, we spend, $1 million for that. We spend this one. And you can say, well, for Google paid, we earn 100,000. So your ROI is actually like very, very bad. And this is where, you know, like the interesting things, you know, like starting to happen, where not only that you're looking into what you're tracking yourself with the visits, but you're actually looking into the other data sources to figure out like how much did they actually spend for Google, right? So if you would know, so spend on source, or just spend on, right? So just spend on. And let's say we know that we spend like, I don't know, like, so like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oops. So let's say this is also dollars. So now we spend like, you know, like, let's say we didn't really had so much money. We spent like 300,000. So if you look at, you know, like the investment, and I don't know how to calculate the investment in here. I think it should be something like for each dollar we spend, we earn this much. So our ROI is it's 35%, which means that, yeah, so for each dollar spent, we earn 30 cents back, right? So that's basically the idea. So for each dollar spent, we got 35 cents back, and that's our ROI, like not 35, sorry, 30. And this kind of can make sense, especially if you're buying like traffic, or you're like, if you're trying to grow your business, you know, like you looking into like spending for the marketing and other things. And this is why the people coming to the direct. So the marketing analysis, that's a completely different thing. I don't want to get into it, nor I have a lot of knowledge about that, but I mean, it's just numbers, right? So you put in one place and that's generating, and that's basically like a general idea. So I'm happy with that. We do have source when we have medium. So what I'm not happy about is the following, is that why do we not have empty data in this query? Because we're running the left joins. So I want to remove the group by. I want to add the star in here, and I want to get at least 1,000 row. And let's, yeah, all of them have orders. Why is that? Oh, it's that because, oh, I see why. So we actually added this thing of when we're creating a user, the user can be either registered, new, or returning. And if the user is registered, it's very likely to run a search. And if the user is returning, it's very likely to also run a search. And then if the user runs the search, it's very likely the user will buy something. So that's kind of like makes sense why these things are happening this way. Now the question is like, why do we have so much of this? And I think the answer for that lies in my code. When I select the visit, or actually when I'm generating the visit, and I'm selecting the user type, and if I go to my user stuff, that the user is registered is very big. It's like 60% of the chance can happen that. And because of that, I just have 2 little visits. I only visit like 10. I only have like 5 multiply, like it's going to be from 5. Let's increase this number. If we increase this number, and again, let's drop our database, and let's try running that again. So let's drop database. Let's create, right, I cannot, I need to unselect this one. Let's create database. It's now done. Now let's run our generator once again to generate all the data for us. The data is generated. The tables is appearing, you know, like visits, and that's good. And let's run a query, and let's see. Right, I need to add e-commerce back here. Yes, now it's much better. So now we do have a user visiting, and then it might perform a search. And of course, if it didn't perform a search, it didn't bought anything. Or user can perform a search but then do not buy. So we just needed to have like a more visits coming in, so that the choice random would actually have more chances to pick one over another, which I think indicates how simple our generator is, because for each day we generate amount of the visits we get, and then based on these visits we generate the other actions. What I think it would be better to have is to have sort of like a global seed which go, I don't know, like I'm kind of like feel like I'm speaking out of my mind here, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, anyways, something like that. So if I have anyone, I guess the question would be, so what should we do next? All right, so we do have if I get into this part, I do have the incoming traffic sort of sorted out. We're coming in the page, we're making a search, and then I think the reality is that sometimes you can make a search without, sorry, you can make an order without going into search, right? So I think this is what we need to do. So we could say like, look, okay, so when the user comes, there is a chance that it would do the search, but at the same time, there is a chance that it would not do the search. It's just like would make an order, because it does know where to go, or it found, like your page, or it found actually your product on like, like landing page coming from the ad, and now it's just want to order. So now let's do that. So, okay, so it's still generating. I think we're fine with the data. We saw what we wanted to see. So now how we can generate that is very simple, because my implementation is pretty straightforward. So I'm looking at the user and what is the chance for the user to do the search, right? And what I can do additionally, actually, so this is search prediction for the user, and this is order prediction for the user. And what I can do the following. So if, where's my search? Generate the search. And this is basically called to generate the search. What I want to do is following. I could say, look, it can generate a search and it can actually order after the search, but what it can also do is can do scenario. So let's just copy this. And then instead of the search prediction, we call it order prediction, right, for the user type. We still have a user type, so we're good with that. And we say, okay, so let's generate order with the same, information, the visit and stuff like that. Let's generate the order, and the order requires visit and the search ID, right? So let's get back into it. So we say, okay, we pass the visit and so we want a visit, which we don't use, or we just got the user type, which is fine. Sorry. And we just want to provide none, right? Because we generated an order without a search, right? So like there is no, so if I would go into that and say, let's click search is trying to get the search ID. So this would fail with the error. So we would need to say that, okay, so if it's coming from the search, so that's ugly now. Okay, so generate an order with the visit and the search ID. So let's, I guess, change into search ID here, but then we're losing the object. Okay, so let's leave this one. So if the search ID, if search, else, just none. I mean, that's cool things about the Python. You can do this type of stuff. So now we'll be creating an order for the, like for the order with the search ID, but it's possible that the search ID is null, and it's for that reason it will be 0, and it should be it. So now the search can happen. Now the question is, do we want to provide a standard search with the order or no? I think no, we don't. So if we did the search, actually we did the order, then we don't need to do the search. That's we're done. So we're exiting the page. So now let's generate this. Let's think it should fail. Nope, look, it's not failing. That's great. And did I clear my data before going into? No, I didn't. That's not great. Let's get back. Actually, let's stop this way. And let's go, let's clean the data. Right, so drop, and then again, let's unselect this one, and again, let's create. That's good, and let's generate. So now this will be running for a quite while. So let it run. Do I have anyone watching stream? Just curious, because I don't really see the stats, or the stats at least is not really very clear. If you do, please say hi, so at least I know I'm not speaking to the void. I'm speaking to the future you. It's fine. Don't worry about me. If you're here, thank you for being here. And the most important, I hope this is interesting and useful to some degree. So, okay, while the data is generating, let's do the following. So we used this, or actually not this, we used this to generate the numbers for the revenue, right? So for the source and video, source and medium, and then the orders. And if we would run the query, it would fail now because we didn't select the e-commerce. Now we selected, so we run the query again. We're getting the numbers, right? So, and the numbers will be still increasing for the time being. Okay, so let's run this one. 85416. Yes, it's still increasing because this is still running. So let's give it, I think we can say like, okay, you're done. You're good. You generated enough of data for us, so now the orders. So you kind of say like, oh, look, it's great. Like, things are working, nothing really broke, but it's not really true. So the thing is that if I go into the total orders, right, and I would go from orders, right? If I would run this, I'm getting this number. Now, if I run this, but I remove these parameters from here, so I don't run any group by statement, I just want to run the same sum, right? So it should be the same. This is what I'm getting. I'm getting way lower number of the orders. So this is 3 digits, and this is 3 digits, and this is 3 digits, right? So if you would check here, so instead of having 3 millions under total order, like totals, I only have like 530,000. The reason why we have that is because of our query, which we used. We said like, oh, every visit needs to join to search and then needs to join to order. So we actually would be able to see all of that. So if you go into your, like data, you do have a search ID. But in some cases, let's reload that. We now actually have a bunch of, like orders where the search ID is empty, right? Actually, even more, we have very often that the order happens without people even performing a search. So the feature of search on our website is basically unnecessary. And people just, like buying straightforward. Like, I don't know what we're selling, but they really like that. So that's good. So now, how do you overcome this? And there is a couple ways. So one of the first ways, you actually could just say, oh, we'll just need to add a search ID in here. And then, like change our idea where now we're joining visits to the orders and we're having this data. But let's say, what if you actually had initial query a little bit different, where what you were asked to be pulled is I actually wanted to have, like count of visits and also count of searches. right? Like what if you ask to have this information? So this actually shows you, like an accurate number of the visits. It would show the accurate number of the searches, but it would show you a very inaccurate number of orders as orders, and this is as total revenue, actually total income, not revenue. Economics 101. So total income, right? Nope, not right. Medium, visits, searches, orders, and right. So now we have, those, and we know from our data that the orders are incorrect because we cannot do the left join against the searches because some orders doesn't have any search happen to it. So how do you overcome something like that? So there is a couple ways. So the easiest way, what you could do, but this is not the clean way. So this is what you can do. You can say like, hey, like we actually cannot say, and this is what, I think this is where the value of the data engineering comes into place, is not to be able to pull the data out from the database and just answer the question, like about like which, like which product sells best or like what traffic is best for us, but it's actually answering the question of how to improve our product from the tracking side so we could actually answer these questions, right? So, but very often to improve, and I will get into how to improve the tracking in a bit, but for the time being, like one of the way what you could say is like what you know, right? So what we know for a pact is that we do have count, like IDs as orders, right, from our orders. So this is, we know that's our orders. We know how much, we have like 6,000 orders. And if I would look into this total without putting these numbers in here, right, just like removing this one, we will see that the orders is only like 1,000. So we'll be missing like 5,000 orders in this example. So what you would want to do, you would say like, look, okay, so this is bad. And this is also bad, but what I can do is I actually can do something like this. I could say, okay, look, I actually can pull you count ID from visits, right? I also can pull you count of ID from searches, and I also can pull you count ID from orders. Right, so these three metrics. Now what we can do is just like union all, union all, and we just add here, let's say orders, here is searches, and here is visits. So we kind of have all of those. So now if we run, okay, so right, so let's give it a name as type or just T, like ICE. We can run this one. Now we have this table, right? So this is the fact. So we know that we have 9,000 visits, we had 230 searches, like 9,000 visits, 2,000 searches, and 6,000 orders. So we know about this way. Now what we don't know is we don't know the source and medium distribution for orders. We can get that for the searches if we join two tables, but for the orders we can't because we don't have a way. So what you can do is one of two things. So one thing is that actually in the orders table, you can provide here the medium and the source of your session or of the visit information, or you actually could have a visit ID in here so you could join with that. Both things are valid and they have a different sort of like, plus and minuses. Like it depends from you how you would go. In this example, I think what I want to do, I want to go a different path where we just say like, okay, so for the yeah, I'll just go with the simple path because we're learning to write SQL and writing join, right? Like, so, okay, so I'll just, so if I'm building a database for the e-commerce, I would add here a visit ID because it's kind of like brings the additional value about that. If I would be modeling an analytical table or analytic table, for which I use for the dashboards, then I would pull here the medium and source into this table. So there's a difference of depending on for what use case I would be using one on another. So because we're building still, it's a you know, like a database for the e-commerce product, even the fake one. So what I want to do then, I go into my, you know, this is my visits, or actually my models. I have a visit model, I have a search model, and I have an order model. So right here, I now will introduce a new, I will call it visit ID, which is a column. Now, I do not have a visit object in, that's actually should be order, and that should be search. So I don't really have, I have a search ID in here, right, which I pass. So I would want to additional pass visit, or actually I would want to pass here visit ID. Let's go with the primary fields. And then I just say like, okay, I do have a visit ID, which is equal visit ID. Now I need to find the usage, right? So where this is used. So this is used in here where the create order is. And they ask to pass the search ID if it exists, and also I now can pass visit ID from the visit with the visit ID, right? So that's also the option now. So we do have the data, not the data, but like we do have these things done for us. Again, let's go into our statement. Let's unselect this one. Let's drop our database. Let's recreate our database. By the way, don't drop database on production. Very bad experience. And we run generate manage. And let's the query run for a couple bit. I will sip some of my tea. Okay, so now if we get to my query, let's stop this one. So now how we generate it. So now we can double check, right? So if we run this, okay, I need to select the database again. So if we run this, and we can remove this one temporarily. So if we run this, we have, this is our numbers. So we have 235 orders, and that's the sum. However, if we would run this to compare how much orders and what is the total value actually is, we're getting a bunch of orders, right? And this is expected because this is totally fine. We didn't change anything with our query. We just changed the data. So if I look into the orders and I would refresh it, I do have a visit ID appearing everywhere. So what I need to do now, I need to say like, okay, so for each visit, we join searches and we also join orders for visit ID being equal to order visit ID, right? And we run that again. And now we have the same amount of orders available to us with the same total value, right? So this actually worked. Now the downside of this is following. So if I would join this one and I would run, is that now if an order actually, not an order, but like if a visit actually do run a search, but then do not order, but then run another search and then order, or like comes first to the website, orders, and then run a search because he likes the product he bought and now he wants to buy something extra for it, so he runs the search, you're kind of like losing this information. It's kind of like all smashed all together. There is a way how you can fix that, but we'll not be going in there. Like, I mean, let's leave some problems for the future as well, right? But for the time being, that solves the issue. So now if I would let's keep a copy of this, let's add our group by statements, let's replace this back in, and let's run again. Now we actually have a valid information about all the, like our total income, and also, like we have amount of the orders, even if the search is less, right? And this is sort of like what you can provide. You can say like, look, okay, so again, referral traffic has the most visit, but had a decent amount of searches, but had the total order, like the maximum amount of the orders, and that's the total income. And then, if you go at the direct or the social, the numbers is a little bit different, and that's sort of like how you would figure out, like the answers for your CTO. And then additionally, as you saw, we went through the way how you can fix the tracking if if you cannot answer these questions, right? So that's sort of like the general idea, is that, yeah, I think that's sort of about, that sums it all, right? Like how the things are moving all together. So okay, let's get back to our situation. So we do have these pieces touched, then we're going into e-commerce. Then from there, we're going into, like either orders or the search. And then we're sort of like doing that, right? Right. I think that's sort of, I'm trying to think what to say else, right? Because as I said, like this usually works well when someone asks the question. When people don't ask the questions, I kind of assume that they don't understood what I was talking about. But in this case, most likely no one is in the room, which is totally fine. So I'm just like, we'll try to figure out like what I want to do else and how can I improve this sort of setup. I think one of the things which I want to do, I want to say that the user can actually, like repeat search, right? So the search might happen multiple times before anyone actually perform an order. Yeah, you think about that, I will think about that, and then we can figure out somewhere in the middle, right? We can figure out what would make the most sense. Meanwhile, I want to check a couple of things. Oh, by the way, I heard this should be. Oh, I know why I don't have so many people on the stream, is because everybody's watching debates, right? I should be watching debates as well. But we can do that in the future. Okay. Okay, let's get. I'm thinking what else I would want to do here. I think I want to add. So we do have searches, right? Like the user perform a search, and here you can increase the search based into like sort of like a search term or what the people search for, and then you can do analysis over, what people are searching and what they are more interested in your web page. The same with the orders, you can actually extend the orders by having, by having the products or stuff like that, and then that also would be increasing visibility of the different analysis. We have a cost analysis in here if we want to do with the amount of the orders. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of like sums it all. I really don't have, I mean, there is other things which can be added, but they're very specific, which you would be adding. It sort of like comes into, but I think for this sort of use case, it's really fine how it is. I think one of the things which I was showing previous time, I can repeat that, right? So for example, if I look into explain command, like all of these actually using, you know, like filter, and because of the type all, there is no indices here. And for that reason, your queries, you know, like first of all, like this is very small data set, so the query will never have an issue. It always will be sub-second. But like if you have hundreds of thousands of rows or million of rows, your query will be lower, right? So one of the way how you can increase the performance of those queries is by adding indices for these fields, right? Like right now we don't have any indices, and this is our performance, how it looks like. Now, if I would add the index, and I could say, okay, so what's now? It's create index, right? I don't know. So MySQL create index. I don't remember how you would write one thing. I mean, who would? Not me. Right, so create an index, and let's call it, okay, so in the, what we're joining with the orders on the visit and on the searches. So let's call it visit ID on the table searches, and the column is visit ID. Done. And let's do that for the orders and also visit ID. Done. Let's run the explain command on the query again and see what happens. So it did the full table scan for the visits table, which makes sense because we didn't filter the visits table at all. However, when it came to joining on the, you know, on the to the visits table, it actually was able to use the index as much as possible. And now because it's also ref types of visits, so it actually was only selecting like a single row. So we actually improved the performance of this query dramatically. I mean, from 0 second to 0 second. Again, because of just like how small the data set is. If this data set would be just like much bigger, then, you know, you would actually feel the difference. And this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create a fake data set, first of all, which I'm happy with, which would sort of have all of different analytical value in it. And then I would just want to generate that. I want to say that, okay, our website, instead of having like 10 visits, have, you know, like 10,000 visits. And instead of having, you know, like 5 orders or something, it has, you know, like multiple orders and multiple searches. And then you can sort of like, you know, like do a different analysis and then just add a amount of data onto it. And that's sort of like what makes, like for me personally, data engineering is very interesting, because it's not only that you need to pull the analytical data out of it, you actually need to learn to deal with amount of the data, you know, and you need to add, in this case, is by adding indices. But the next stage is that where your tables is so big, they're so heavy, they have so much writes into it. What you want to do, you want to extract the analytical data out of your production tables into your analytical database, if you like, or in your data warehouse, and this is where you would want to run it in there. So that's sort of like a different thing would be, right? So for example, just a small glimpse, right, how you would do this approach where you would be taking data from your relational database and exporting that to your data warehouse. So solution would be something like where you would have a query, right, and you don't run any aggregation operations. I mean, actually you would and you could, but you basically would run this, right, and then the results you would actually insert into. So the examples, let's do that, right? So let's create another database. Let's call it analytics, right? So create database analytics. And now what we do is say like, okay, so create table analytics, and let's go with source medium. So source medium KPI as, and then we can do that, right? And we can run this table. So now if I go into select star from analytics, source medium, key performance metrics. What's the actual name? Analytics, create table as source medium. Is it because I need to select? Yes, analytics, table, source medium, KPI. I mean, there is a table, so why not selecting it to me? Oh, because of this. Now I get it. So if I select now, I have this data, right? So looking at this data is already the beneficial of its own. But as you can see, what we're doing all the time, we're running this query on all the data. So what you want to do instead, you actually want to introduce a new field like created add. So created add under the visits. Just again, we're going very simple. So visits created add. And then we also want to group by this. And our created add is just like a single day field with the 00 hours. And actually we want to, let's drop table and let's recreate a table. Drop table. And now let's recreate a table. Now, as you see, so if we select this table, now we're getting like 500 free rows instead of like whatever the number was, and now we have a field in here. So what does it allow us to do? Sorry, it allows us to do the following analysis, which is I think is also very interesting. So it allows me to put all the data in here, and now I can say, okay, let's create a pivot table like the last time, which we had over here. We had, you know, per different on the days. And now actually, yeah, this is exactly what we want to do, but we just have a different metric. So want to have now rows is our created add. Now columns is our source, right? And now for the value, I actually want to look at visits, right? And this would be my data set, which I would want to plot. Insert chart. And again, let's select this. And why don't you want to? Right, because I didn't add it. Sorry about that. So let's add these. Let's go here and actually want to filter the data with yes, I don't want to see the blanks. Good. So if I now go into here and I would do insert chart, and this is, you know, like a data and how it looks like. So for the different, let's change that to this. Oh, that's so much data in here. And also the labels is not really visible. You know what we can do? We can limit a little bit our data for here. So instead of looking at all the, let's add a of the source. And let's keep only organic. Right, so now the data has reduced. We're only looking at the organic data set, and now I want to see only, so use, nope, no, not this one. And why do I not see labels? Yeah, whatever. I don't see the labels, I'm sorry about that, but like you can see the analysis now turns a little bit different. You actually can see how does, no, it's not good. Like I hate, so there is a total and there is a, why do I don't see? Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Let's go here, let's create a new one. Let's add it in here, and if I would insert the chart now, right, but it only has one thing. So you, okay, so right here, you see the difference of the organic traffic distributing between those. But what I think I should be doing is the following. Instead of showing the source because I'm filtering by the source, I should rather change that to medium. So now we do have a different source type, right? So we can select these columns. This is a total column. Now if we're getting in here and I'm just removing my data and putting it back here and now doing insert chart, now we can actually tell a different story. We can say like, hey, so we looked into our data and we filtered out for the source, so the source would be organic. And now we would say like, so it would be like distribution of medium by organic source. And that's sort of like you would getting the distribution of how it is. So like the Bing, Google, and Yahoo. And you would see, you know, that in some cases Google is not really used. So I don't know what market that e-commerce is running, but sort of like how, you know, have the possibility to, you know, have an analysis, and also not only analysis of which channel is the most useful over the years, but also you can get the answer to sort of like see how does a channel performance changing. So for example, you know how much money you spend on each day on each channel, and you actually can keep a track on that. And this is what you want to do. So whenever you're looking at the numbers, in my opinion, you want to see a time series where you would see the changes, right? You want to see the changes to be able to tell the story about, you know, like what the data represents. Because otherwise, if you're just looking at, you know, like 5,000, you know, like dollars in orders, I mean, what does it say to us? Like, is it better than it was yesterday? Is it better than it was last year? It's that sort of thing, right? Like it's yeah. Yeah, so this is sort of like, again, I'm getting back to myself. I think this is where I want to stay for a bit in this stage, right? Where I do have this data ready. I need to think of what do I want to do next. And yeah, and for the time being, I think that's sort of like I think that's we'll keep with that. Anyways, I hope you found it useful. I think I will need to, I should not say I will need to trim the stream a little bit, but yeah, I think you found, I hope you found, you know, English is hard. I hope you found this stream useful and interesting. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave the comments or reach out, and I will try to answer them in the next stream or some other way. So thank you very much for joining me today, and good night or good morning, depends on what time of the day you're watching. Cheers, take care, bye.